A few years ago, I got infected big time by some permaculture memeplexes. And for those who aren't aware, permaculture is a design system that will use any technique or any principle that allows it to follow particular ethics, and they call it earth care, people care, and fair share or something. So you make your life, or usually just how you produce food in practice, regenerate natural ecosystems as much as possible and be good for people's health holistically, and to produce enough surplus food that you don't feel bad about just sharing it around. And I'm not going to go into in this video whether this is actually realistic or if it's a pipe dream. But I will note that it's the design system part which is very interesting about permaculture, because it will use any ideas that come along for how to do something. It has an extremely high potential. There's a very high skill ceiling. Somebody who really is an expert, I would say, probably could go to any climate and become an expert, leaning on their own skill at research, their understanding of plants, their understanding of just so many different techniques. They could find something that's really productive in that context. The problem comes when they act like this is easily reproducible, and they don't realize that they can easily reproduce it because they're actually an expert. Like, they're actually a master at it. So they go off to some country and come up with a design which is hugely successful on that site. And they say, look, permaculture works everywhere. And, and look at the neighbor. The neighbor saw what we were doing and saw that it was way better than the normal way of doing things. And so she, on her own, just made something similar. And the problem with this, of course, doesn't apply to the site where this person went and established it, and it doesn't apply to the neighbor, because the neighbor is literally in the same area, the same context. So of course they can just copy. They can just copy. They don't have to think about the techniques. They don't have to design much at all. And that's the problem with permaculture, is that you have to design to be doing it properly. And not only is it very difficult to design well, like just in general, like in any domain, it's extremely difficult as a beginner to tell a good design from a bad design. So you could very well follow a bunch of things, do your best at making a design for your context, and miss things that are so fundamental and important that it basically fails in meeting its goals. And this happened to me, and it doesn't just happen to me. The difference with me is that I have a habit of being very skeptical, very nitpicky. If something doesn't work the way I thought it would, I tend to stop trusting it. And I've noticed when that happened to me, I started noticing that a lot of other people were getting really bad results. They weren't getting the sort of results that basically everyone promises in permaculture, and the experts and masters can deliver, they get mediocre results or worse. Like they literally would have got more, in terms of the third ethic, if they had used conventional gardening or conventional agriculture, like by orders of magnitude. So how can you scale this up? Well, you can't do it in a hurry, is my opinion. If you're relying on people becoming experts and trial and error, that has to happen in a context where the person is supported by something else. And it's very telling to me how often the permaculture people that you hear from actually are heavily subsidized by the labor and money of people new to permaculture who have been caught up in the memes and are really excited about it. For example, if you have a teaching farm for permaculture, or you do permaculture design courses and you charge people money to come and work for you, so they come in quite large numbers sometimes and pay you for the privilege of doing your work on your farm for you. Now, yes, I know obviously they're getting something out of it from your point of view, but you can't claim that that farm is productive in comparison to a traditional farm. If the traditional farmer has to pay workers and you're being paid to have volunteer labor. And that's why I consider the only valid examples of permaculture really working to be ones where the person is actually just doing permaculture to try to grow food, or as opposed to like conventional farming techniques, or on a wider level, making an alternative lifestyle out of it. So ironically, it's not the people selling it who I would trust. If I just came across somebody and we got talking and they said, "Oh yeah, I'm big into permaculture. You should come and visit my farm sometime. I did this and I did that, and we've got so much food, we don't know what to do with it, and we do hardly any work." I'll talk about the permaculture definition of not much work in another video. But yeah, the basic problem is being a design system with no set way to do things increases the skill ceiling, but also raises the floor. If you don't know what you're doing, your design will be bad and you will lose a season of what might have been productive if you just copied some conventional techniques. However bad those conventional techniques might be on a global basis or as a trend, in terms of results that people can observe, it's very unlikely that permaculture will do it for them unless they've paid an expert or a master to come and do it for them.